What's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This upcoming weekend, we have UFC, I believe it's 288, could be 289 at this point. The main thing that we're looking at though is Cejudo versus Aljamain Sterling. Why do I want to look at this fight? I want to talk about what are Henry Cejudo's chances of getting a victory after approximately 3 years off. That is going to equal, for most people, what we would call ring rust. We're going to talk about, will Cejudo suffer from ring rust? Will that lead to a loss? Most likely for him, and how you can go about avoiding ring rust if you're somebody who has not competed in a long time. The first thing that I should answer for everybody out there is, do I believe in ring rust? Because it's kind of a controversial topic. Some people go, yes, 100%. If you take time off and you're not actively in the ring multiple times per year, you're gonna have ring rust. Other people go, no, not so much. Don't really believe in it. There's other elements which can come into play that you can allow yourself to avoid that situation. I wanna let you guys know that I think, yes, it does exist for some people, but if you do things correctly, there are ways to avoid it. So it's not a hard yes or a hard no, depends on the person and what they're doing. Now, in terms of Henry Cejudo, we're looking at somebody who has done so much in his career. Gold medalist in wrestling at the Olympics, 125-pound champion in UFC, 135-pound champion in UFC. This guy's accolades speak for themselves. But 3 years off, we're talking 2020 is a long time, especially when you look at Sterling and the fact that he has not lost a fight, or he's been on a win streak since something like 2018. So we have Cejudo, who's been off for 3 years, then we have the guy over the last 5 years who's just been going win, 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 and in dominant fashion over many people that Cejudo also fought. Well, not many of them, but a couple of them at least that he fought. So what we want to talk about first is, do I think Cejudo is going to suffer? And do I think he will lose this fight? Well, this is, I'm not an MMA expert in terms of groundwork, but I think this is a very interesting matchup in terms of Cejudo, who's always pretty much the shorter fighter, but just a tank, so explosive, so powerful. And then we have Sterling, who's going to be much taller for the weight class, but looks crazy strong and has great groundwork, especially back control. Could, after all this time, Cejudo be a little bit off? Could he not be 100% what he was when he was winning those UFC titles? Absolutely. But let's talk about what he could be doing during this training camp, during the last 3 years, which will make that ring rust a little less likely to impair his performance this upcoming Saturday. Number one, you have to be staying active. Not in the ring, obviously, because he hasn't been competing, or the cage in his case, but you have to be active in the sense you can't just go, okay, I'm done fighting and I'm not going to train whatsoever. If you do that, yes, you're 100% going to have ring rust because your timing is going to decrease, your overall skill level is going to decrease, and when you're not in there just moving with people, the nerves are going to really jump on you on fight night. And remember, a big part of being able to perform is being able to relax to a certain extent. And if you get in there and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous, I'm so ramped up, I'm so jacked up, it's gonna diminish your performance. So somebody like Cejudo, who has done so much in terms of a wrestling career, the MMA, the UFC time that he's had, I think it's unlikely that he's going to really suffer in ring rust in this sense, that the nerves are going to get to him. He's very accomplished, and I think he's been training, from what I've heard, over the last 2 or 3 years, staying active. And if we look at somebody, case in point, John Jones, who has been away from the sport for so long, came back and just got that UFC heavyweight title, like bam, right away. It makes a very interesting case for the fact that Cejudo might be able to do the same, but something that I just saw the other day, which was very interesting. It was something along these lines. Champions or people challenging for the UFC title over 35 in the history of the sport, the record combined is something like 2 wins and something like 28 losses. And Cejudo, I believe, is now 36. So he's falling into that category where these people are not winning fights as older competitors because they're going up against guys who are just as good, if not better, or just a tiny bit worse. But these other guys are just that much younger, maybe that much hungrier. Maybe they don't have ring rust because they've been active, pursuing that goal of getting that belt. I mean, there's so many things that play out. But it's a very interesting case because no, I don't think Cejudo will have taken time off. And I don't think that he will have nerves and all that sort of thing, which would pull a lot of people down. But I think hopefully he's being very cautious and he's taken the necessary precautions to get himself back into the state where he can go and win this fight and not have ring rust play a massive part in a potential loss. He should be going in, he should be sparring a lot, getting those rounds in, those hard rounds. He should be recognizing that, you know, maybe my timing, just everything will be a little off. Maybe I don't need to rush in. And I can take just a little bit of a feeling out process, because if you get in and you're too tight and you try to actively exchange or go for those explosive shots, that might be a mistake. So I would suggest if you suffer from ring rust, you just slow the pace of the fight initially. And I am somebody who has maybe not experienced ring rust in the sense that my performance has diminished, but I have had many times where I have been out of competition for long periods. And when I fought Lerdsila, that was close to a year in between. No, sorry, more than a year in between fights, I believe. Over the pandemic, I did not get to compete for a very long period of time, something like a couple of years. So it's okay to have time off, as long as, in my opinion, you are actively training and you're not taking a break. You're not treating your time off like a vacation. This becomes more difficult if you're somebody who's injured. If you have to pull away from a sport for a year plus because you are injured, then that will play potentially out in a different way. But you can still find ways, even when you're injured, to stay active. If you have a blown out knee, you can go to the pool and do lots of swimming, and you can, work on your shadow boxing. There's always something that you can do when you're injured. You can watch fights, try and keep your mind sharp. If you're, bedridden for a month with an injury, there's so much that we can do to make sure we don't suffer from ring rust as greatly as other people might, because they don't take the necessary steps to be their best version with time off and being away from the sport. Really, my answer to will Cejudo suffer from ring rust this weekend is I don't know. I doubt it. I don't know. And I don't think anybody will really understand how much ring rust will play into his victory or his loss, because Sterling is an amazing opponent. If Cejudo happens to beat him, then obviously we can go, oh, okay, you know what? There was no ring rust, but maybe he could have performed better if he would have fought him while being active. But if he loses, a lot of people will go, oh yes, ring rust. But maybe it's just that Aljamain Sterling is just that good that it doesn't matter if you put in the best Henry Cejudo, he would have got the victory. So it's always, I don't know what's gonna really happen, but I do know that I believe in ring rust to a certain extent, but I feel like you can brush it off if you take the necessary steps and you make sure you are fight ready and on point when it comes to the night to step in that cage or that ring. Anyway, those are my thoughts, and I hope anybody out there who is having to step away from the sport for a while and wanting to get back in can overcome that sensation or that fear, I suppose, that ring rust is going to play a massive part and you're going to lose because of it. Mindset is so much in fighting, and if you believe in ring rust and you get in thinking that it's going to hinder your performance, it might. But that's all your mindset, not necessarily the ring rust. So let's leave it there, guys. I enjoyed talking with you today about this topic because it's kind of near and dear to my heart with the time I've had to take off, switching promotions, and people messing around with my career. I've always come out on top after those breaks, and I think a lot of it is just right there. If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a like. If you haven't already, join the channel, get subscribed. As always, guys, train hard. I'll see you back here soon for another video.